Good morning.
Good morning. Happy Friday.
This is Val Vandervoort of Veritas Homes.
And I'm Liz Min. Thanks for joining us.
Today we're going to start by talking about kind of what's been going on with the inventory. So the county jumped by 10% from last week to this week, so that's super exciting. Several of the cities followed that trend. There were a few, however, that stayed at exactly the same number, which was Redwood City, Foster City, and Belmont. So, but San Carlos was the big jump in inventory. So they had over a 50% increase in inventory from last week to this week. So I guess it's not right after Labor Day,
right?
Which makes sense.
People getting it, pulling it together this week.
Yep.
And what was really exciting about this, quite honestly, was that all the new homes that came on were under $3 million. With a couple of them under $2 million, which is just astonishing. One of those is a 2-bedroom, kind of a small lot close to Alameda, but still, this is amazing, right?
A price range that is mildly easier to deal with.
Yes.
So we put out our feelers for topics that people would like to get more information about in the terms of real estate around here. So we had a past client suggest talking about, do you remodel your current home or do you go buy a different home? So we're going to cover that topic today. And
it's honestly a question that we get from a lot of people all the time. So it was such a great question that we talk about. We have these conversations all the time, right?
Yes.
So I guess the first question is, do you love your lot? Can you do what you want to do on that lot? Or are there some limitations? Are you on a creek? Do the setbacks keep you from going, on a creek, the setback is greater than it is at the rear, well, assuming the creek is in the rear.
Could be on the side, though, I guess.
It could. But typically here, that's what we end up with. Anyway, so that's a good place to start, is it possible, right? And then you think, do you love your neighbors in your neighborhood? I loved my neighbors on Greenwood, but you also have to think, they're not necessarily tied into staying forever either.
Right.
Very
true.
And, when we left Greenwood, there was a family who we really, really enjoyed who left about the same time, and it's just things, every family has to make their decisions for their own selves. And,
Another thing to think about is kind of what are the costs associated with. So building costs these days is about $600 a square foot, but that's kind of squishy. Liz and I were talking about this, that contractors don't necessarily quote it out that way, but when you start to do kind of the math on what your engineering costs might be, your architectural costs, permit costs, those kinds of things, that you start to get kind of around that number as a reasonable estimate around here. Buying is about $1,200 a square foot, so it's obviously more economical to do the building on your own, but there's obviously, as we're talking about, more things that go into it. And the other thing you have to consider is, do you have to move out? And if you're paying $5,000 a month in rent for 6 to 12 months, that's another significant cost that goes into there.
Yeah, and then, it varies a lot if you're adding a lot of square footage, right? As opposed to just remodeling existing square footage. So just lots of factors that can affect that price.
Yeah.
And then if you sell, you have to think about incurring capital gains taxes, but you get to reset your $250,000 or $500,000 homeowner's exemption, which people often forget about the benefit of doing that, right?
Right. We don't do it frequently enough, right? Yeah. Sell your house and then reset that clock. You can, accumulate a lot of capital gains savings over time if you do it that way. Of course, there's other costs like selling costs that go into it. But so if you sell and go buy something new, you're also going to reset your property taxes unless you're over 55 years of age or you qualify under one of the other categories that's been carved out by our new Prop 19. So.
Yeah. And then you just have to figure out what works for your family, kind of what you can manage, because a remodel is another full-time job. It's a lot to manage. It's a lot of decisions to make, and a lot of pressure. And so, do you have the bandwidth to manage it? And, does that make sense? for your family if you're, on the verge of change, in terms of what your home population looks like, right?
Yes.
Does it make sense to do that just for where people are going to be?
Yeah. We are actually getting quite close to starting a remodel on our house, and we love our neighborhood. We love our neighbors. I think they are going to stay put for quite a while. So, so for us, there was absolutely no question that it made sense to work with the lot that we have now. So
yeah, you have a great lot. Yeah.
We love our setting. So
yeah.
So that's what came to make the decision for us.
And it's funny because we both made different decisions.
Yeah.
I had intended to do a big remodel, like a really big remodel, and I had more to do than Val. My job was going to be bigger, and I hit the easy button, kind of.
Yeah.
And I sold my other house and bought a new one, which also needs a remodel, but it's a much smaller remodel than the one I needed to do before. So I kind of picked both.
Right. And here's the thing that we were talking about is can you, if you go buy a different house, can you find really what you want? So in your situation, it's kind of this hybrid thing, right? You went for more space, but knowing that you still were going to have to do remodeling. And I'd say it'd be pretty darn tough to find exactly what you want. What will happen most likely is you're starting to think about looking and you go walk into a house and you absolutely love it and you might not be ready to buy it as quickly as our market moves. So
I'd be ready.
Yeah, but if you've got more questions about it, we're certainly happy to have further conversation about it, and hopefully this is a good start to what to think about.
Yeah. All right. Happy weekend.
Yeah.
Thanks again to Surreal Estate.
Take care.